you and I in our business, we've had some amazing years, and then we've had some not so amazing years. And on the not so amazing ones, I feel that's where we grow the most. We grow as a person. We grow as a leader. So here I am, 65, senior citizen now, bro. I got my Medicare card, okay?
I thought we'd get through the whole thing without you bringing up your Medicare card, but I guess
I had to do it because I want you to show me some respect. I represent all these seniors now, okay? You got to show us some love. So, but...
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of World Class Mindset presented by the Daily Locker Room. I'm Coach Ack, and today we have probably the most special guest that we can have in World Class Mindset, and that's the creator of World Class Mindset, Eric Giglione. You know him as Coach Gigs. Coach Gigs, super exciting to have you on that side of the interview today.
It's definitely a little weird here this morning, Coach Ack, Mr. David Ackerman, but I'm really excited, David, excited that you get to kind of talk to me a little bit. Super excited to be here.
So let's just jump right in. Okay. I know that a lot of people have heard parts of your story, but when it comes to mindset, they might not realize that when you were in your late teens, you jumped in a van and went from New York down to Florida with nothing and actually slept in the van for a period of time as you were launching your life. Can you just talk about what your mindset was as you were leaving everything you knew and heading to Florida?
So if I'm going to keep this real, which I am, I'm going to tell you my mindset, because I thought about this when you asked me these questions that you were going to ask me. And my mindset back then, straight up, was I was in trouble, David. I was hanging around the wrong crowd. Okay. And because of it, I was getting into trouble. Nothing like with going to jail or anything crazy like that. But I was hanging around the wrong crowd. My mom was very upset that I quit my job at the electronics plant because I hated it, because I didn't see any future there. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I started to work in a bakery. I started to wash dishes. And then I got into a little more trouble. And then my mother said, "That's it, you're out." So I'd love to tell you this beautiful story, but I more or less was kicked out because I wasn't being a good boy. And so I got a van. My mother made contact with her brother, stepbrother, down in Florida. And I went and I got a van, and I would sleep in this van, and I would go down there and go work for my uncle. We put a mattress in there, a little fridge. So to me, I was a young boy. I was like 20 years old. It was just this exciting adventure. So my mindset was, I got to find myself. I got to find an opportunity, a career. So I went down to Florida, slept in the van on the beaches. I would get pushed every day from the police, because obviously you're not allowed to park on the beach or near the beach. I would shower on those beaches. I would get odd jobs, working again, washing dishes, and doing whatever I could do to survive. So my mindset was just get out of here and go find yourself and go find something. Really, because I really have to give all of this to my mother, who we all know, or all of you know, is in that background, in that picture. The qualities that I think I was bringing in my mindset. My mom was a very hard worker. My daddy had a stroke at 42 years old and became paralyzed. And my mother had to support the entire family. And if you know anything, David, I know you do, because we're close in age, or at least I want to think so. Maybe a few years difference. But back then, women couldn't even get jobs, David. They couldn't even get a job. It was that much negative on females, women working. So my mom worked in a sweatshop. She worked in different places, sewing. She was a seamstress. And so I would see my mother hustle and work very, very, very hard so that we could keep our home. I didn't know at the time that we were going to be losing our home. My mom kept a good face on, and she kept hustling. And then she started a little business because her father had passed away. And that business started to do well. And she put me to work at putting flyers in people's windshields, get one haircut, buy one, get one for free. So I think my mindset down in Florida, and the reason I was able to really get going is I watched my mother work very, very hard.
Because a lot of people, when they're getting started, they're at a low point. And it seemed like, as positive as you might have been, you were at a low point going to Florida, and everything turned around when you found American Income Life.
Yeah.
Was there anything, as you evolved over the years and built your business, that you would say replaced the mindset of hard work and positivity, or added to it? Or is it the same thing now that it was 43 years ago?
It shows that you were a journalist, David. Great question. You know, this work ethic wasn't enough. Obviously, I had to develop this mindset of salesmanship, because what I did was I entered the world of selling, and I got into retail selling first. So I worked in a Jeans West store, and what I began to learn is that sales is a transfer of energy, a transfer of belief. And so I would slowly start to add that to my toolbox, if you will, and I would start studying sales. And I thought, okay, sales, you can make more money than if you have a salary, because you can get a commission on the things that you sell. So I began to get very motivated. But I realized in retail selling, while you make a nickel and a dime and a quarter on anything you sell over a certain amount, it wasn't enough. But I realized that my sales skills was something that I needed to work on. I also, David, had to work on my attitude, because there were moments when I was living in that van where it started to get not so glamorous. You know, you're waking up in the morning, you don't have a place to go, place to shower. And so I would wake up, I remember this, in Sunrise, Florida, and I saw this payphone off in the distance, and I dreaded calling it, and I was going to call my mom collect to let her know, gotta come home.
Okay, this is what people need to understand. And I mean, I know you might not enjoy reliving that, but the power that this conversation brings to people like me, you know, I came into this at a low point in my career and a low point in my life. So knowing that you could go through these feelings and still overcome that and still get to where you are now, I mean, that's really the biggest inspiration that you can be to people.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I know you don't want to get
No, I don't. You're hitting some hard spots. So when I found myself at that payphone, and my mom, of course, heard her son cry. So she said, I'm going to send you the money. So I had to get to that payphone, and it was heavy, because now it was almost like I was quitting. You know, I was going home. And so I went to pick up the phone and do it, and I hung up the phone, and I decided not to do it. And it was in that moment, I believe, that my real motivation began to kick in, because now this is no longer a fun thing. Now I got to make something of myself. And so I began to search the newspapers. We didn't have the internet. I began to search the newspapers for jobs. And I saw this ad, and they call it a blind ad. It said, if you want to make $1,000 a week and can follow directions and have integrity, call me. So it was a blind ad. I answered it. The guy's name was Russell Sanguidolci. He was with Union Fidelity Life Insurance Company. And I didn't know this until I interviewed with him. But at that point, you could tell me anything you want. You tell me I'm going to make $1,000 a week. I'm going to do whatever you tell me, sir. So, David, you got to understand, I had long hair at the time. I thought I was going to be a rocker, right? I came from home and I had this long hair. So he says, first thing we got to do, kid, we got to cut that hair. I'm like, what? Okay, yes, sir. So I'm thinking I got all my power gone. I got a haircut, and he happened to be a barber. So he cut my hair, took me under his wing, put me in a hotel room. Listen to this, got my license. And for over a week, every day, I would get up, my hotel room, like a Motel 6, right next to his. I would go into his room. It's where he would tell me to go, and I would have to practice my presentation.
I think it's important to talk about this stuff, because when people tend to meet you, especially more recently, later in your career, it's easy to have this idea that it was always easy for you, that it was always good, that it always went smoothly. And it's funny because similar to your start, when I came to this company, I had a fast start, but that does not mean that everything that you did went smoothly. So if you could go back and look at the 43-year history you've had with our company,
Right.
is there anything that you would go back to and change? Is there any, I mean, I get that, you and I share the philosophy of, I'm here because of everything that happened.
Sure.
But is there anything that you just look at and say, I really would not have wanted to go through that again?
Well, maybe, I think of two different things. I don't know that I would have changed anything, only because I've evolved and I've learned that everything we go through at that moment in time is necessary. So I don't look at things as, wow, I wish this, I don't do that. But I do look back, and if I could have altered a few different things, it probably would have been that I would have been thinking a lot bigger sooner than later. So I began to start thinking much bigger and broader opportunity wise it took me decades before I really started to think bigger. So while I have no regrets, when I look back, I was limited in my thinking. I had limited thinking. Maybe it's because of my upbringing. I don't know, but I had small vision, small goals. So I look back and I realized that had I had bigger vision, bigger dreams, bigger goals earlier, that I might have been further along. But as I've learned, that's not the way, the mindset, that's not the way I wanted to live out the rest of my life, thinking, oh my God, I didn't think big enough. I'm not the billionaire. I don't have the 300-foot yacht, because that just doesn't make any sense to me. So, but again, if I go backwards for your question, what would I have done different, or how would my mindset have been different? I just would have thought bigger sooner.
When did you notice that shift in your thinking? And what do you think caused it? What opened the door to you being able to think bigger? What allowed that to happen?
As soon as you asked that question, my mind immediately went, Eric, when did you really start thinking bigger? And you know when it was, David? When I saw other people doing bigger things than me. As you well know, dear friend of both of ours, Rick Altig, for instance, was just one of several, but he was doing so much more than the rest of us. And so I think that's when I began to realize that, wait a minute, if he can do it, why can't I? God bless you. So that's really when I started to see other people do bigger and better things than me. And that's what triggered me to start thinking, I've got to think bigger. So I've been a big proponent my whole life of finding the biggest gorilla, the biggest producer, the biggest, baddest mofo in the room, and then just quiet my mind and listen. And so, David, as you well know, I would hop on planes multiple times a year. And I still do this. In fact, you and I have a visit coming up at noon with a dear friend of ours, because we're going to bounce ideas off of him, because we want some guidance. We want to get bigger and do better. So that's been my journey, is I look at other people who are doing better than I am, who are doing what I'm doing. I then make it a point to kind of befriend them, because I admire them and I respect them. So I extend love, respect, and honor. And then what I have found, David, is that these people that many of us think are untouchable and won't talk to you, they'll actually give you all the answers. And so for me, that's what triggered it, is finding people who did. And then I found out they were willing to give you the. Now, Rick Altig doesn't give you all the answers, David. Just so you know.
We love Rick. A lot of people already know this part of your story. You certainly haven't been shy about sharing it. And it intersected almost exactly with when we crossed paths 20 years ago, where we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of your motorcycle accident. And I don't want to linger on the accident itself. Obviously, that would have been rough for anyone to go through, to say the least. But in terms of mindset, I believe, from knowing you as long as I have, that was a very formative experience for you in helping drive your mindset to places that maybe it would never have gone if not for that event. So could you just talk a little bit about how your mindset evolved over the last 20 years, either because of or in spite of the accident?
Wow. So yeah, that was what experts call a life-altering moment. When I found myself in a gurney, came out of the coma, they told my family I wouldn't survive. Obviously, I did. The internal bleeding stopped. I was hit, for those who don't know, head on my motorcycle at 60 miles an hour, thrown up 51 feet in the air, landed on my back, pelvic bone split wide open, brain damage, just a lot of bad stuff happened. When I woke up, David, if there was such a thing as waking up, because it's all not blurry, but somewhat blurry, they said I made a joke right away as soon as I came out of the coma, which makes sense to me. But then once I realized the situation that I was in, it was really in that moment a survival. It was can I get out of this hospital, and will I ever be able to have my life, my normal quote life back? Because they did tell me of the brain damage and my memory. I began to see right away that I was losing memory of people and things, and that I probably would never walk again. So my mindset in the initial days of it were just get through it. It wasn't even one day at a time. When you're in that type of position where you're in constant pain, it's minute by minute. So I had nights and moments where my body temperature would go up to 105 and it would just pop, and we would have tons of nurses in there, icing me down. They said they lost me at one point, and I believe that's when I had my near-death experience. I was kind of in the corner of the room looking down at myself. And that was the moment that I saw heaven and Nicole's face. And that became my strength. And so when I got back in, then it was, okay, let's endure this. They took me out of that hospital, moved me to UMDNJ, to a more trauma center, because the injuries were that bad. And it would just be a minute by minute, hour by hour. There was no such thing as day and night anymore for me. There was no sleep. You didn't have that. And so the way that whole thing changed my life, because then it was years of recovery, of rehabilitation, etc., was it helped me significantly. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I gained perspective on what and who was really, really important. So I was putting too much emphasis on making money, on being successful, quote, in my mind. And being successful was, you got the car, you got the house, you got the kid in the best schools. And so what the accident did, it altered that. It didn't take it away, but it added to my mind what really was important, and that every day is a gift, and that I would appreciate more every single minute that I breathe, because there's no guarantee I'm going to have it, because I'm one of these that almost lost it and I saw it. So gratitude began to grow inside of me, and I would become much more grateful, much more, believe it or not, I don't want to say positive, but I would become just more in the present moment, realizing that now is all I have. And so that's what I gained from it. I gained that the most important thing in life is your health, number one, because without it, you don't have anything. So I also, not that I always take good care of myself, but now even more so, I began to take care of myself. I also began to really dig deeper into my relationship with my daughter and my friends, and cherish those relationships even more than ever before. And so the drive never left me. I'm still driven. But what the accident brought me was great perspective on what really is important in life. Yes, it's important to me that I have a nice home with air conditioning and heating and a nice car to drive and all these wonderful trappings. But if I wasn't careful, these trappings would define me. And so I'd like to think that what this brought me was was kind of a evolution and a reincarnation of me so that I would get that perspective. And that's why probably the daily locker room and programs like this are very, very important to me, because I want everybody to experience the fullness of life, and that it's not just money. It's not just family and being broke. I mean, you know, the idea of having a loving family and not being able to take care of them and maybe do some extra special things. You know, David, I don't know how you were raised, but you know what a restaurant, a high-end restaurant was. We went to McDonald's and I got to supersize it. You know, I didn't see the inside of a nice restaurant, you know, but once I did, I said, I think I like that better. And so, you know, I've always said you don't help the poor by becoming one of them. You help them by getting rich and then helping other people. So I don't believe, David, that without this accident, I would have had that much of a deeper perspective on that, so that my life would mean something. And last thing I want to respond to on this question is, one of the other really profound moments was during that period was what I learned with Covey about having an end in view. You know, he has those 7 habits. And that one became really, really important to me, because as you know, in that habit, he talks about you're going to a funeral and you see thousands of people there. Only as you walk up to the casket, you realize somebody from the neighborhood, somebody from your friends, your best friend, somebody in the family, and somebody you work with. They're all someone that person work. They're all going to speak about this person. Only as you walk up to the casket, you see that this person is you. What are they going to say about you? And that collided with me in that moment. Like, okay, if I do die here, what is everyone going to say? And then I made a decision, conscious decision, of the person I wanted to be. And it became even more profound because of the accident. I learned the value of giving. Just keep giving to others. Give them your love, give them your heart, give them a time, you know, go cook a meal for someone, just give. And then when you give, not that you do it for that reason, but it comes back. So when I was in that gurney fighting for my life, I had hundreds of people telling me, Giggs, you're going to make it. Meanwhile, I'm saying, are you kidding me? I'm in pain here, make it. I don't want to hear that. By the way, I don't know if they'll bleep this out, but this is just real, man.
We'll figure that out.
This is real. So I'm like, I have to. It's like I felt forced, because all these people are telling me, well, if anyone can do it, you can. All right. So my self-pity got out of the way, and I began to, and then, as you know, Bernard Rappaport would send me letters every day. Almost 2 weeks. I still have the letters. So that also just helped me a lot to recover.
Something you said really resonated, and I want to make sure that our viewers really catch this, and that's that when you were in your worst moment, when the staff in the hospital thought that they had lost you, you saw Nicole's face. And what it reminds me of is, if we strip everything away from this, what you were able to find was purpose, was a goal, but probably more importantly, the best motivation to get you through the most difficult time that you ever had to go through. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us, even in everyday life, that if the motivation we find is powerful enough, you weren't going to give up because of Nicole. And ultimately, that's what's going to bring you through the trauma, the difficulty, the challenges, and everything else. But why can't everybody use something like that, find something to identify, to push them when other people won't? You did. And I think it's really important that people see that. And that kind of leads me to the last question I have for you, which is that in a 43-year career, as storied and successful as your career has been, you know, we often kid around about if the company had a Mount Rushmore, you would certainly be carved in stone on the monument. But obviously there were ups and downs. There were low points. For the people who are stuck in a low point now or don't have the vision that you did, how have you managed not only to survive all of those difficulties, but to thrive through them and still 43 years later be in the position that you're in right now?
So, David, that question to me is the most important one because I'm human and I fall. And I have fallen many, many times, and I know I'll fall again. Failure is simply a part of life, but I don't view failure that way, meaning I don't quit. So what is it that keeps me going? What gets me up in the morning? What keeps me moving forward after adversity after adversity after adversity? Because we all have it. And it really, bottom line, net, it's my dreams and my goals that I still haven't seen come to pass yet. There's so many. My quote bucket list, if you will, is still a big bucket list. I mean, I've got a lot of things that I checked off, check. You know, I hit a lot of the buckets, but there's a lot more for me to do, a lot. And so what gets me up after falling down is that on a daily basis, I don't just preach this, and I try not to preach at all these days. I just want to share that you got to have a dream and you got to have a goal and that you got to have a reason to get up. I have reasons. Here, believe it or not, I want to take on golf again. I had it back in the day and it took up way too much time. Well, guess what? It's on my butt. I want to play golf again. And by the way, David, I don't do anything half-assed. So, you know, I want to be a good golfer, not a scratch golfer, but I want to be a good golfer. So that's a goal. That's a dream. There are places that I want to see and travel to still. You know, my daughter wants to go to Greece, Mykonos. Okay, come on. Where's my daughter still in college, going through law school, right? And then she's going to have, you know, so there's endless to me dreams and goals that inspire me every day. I don't look to be inspired by outside forces. So my way, David, through all these things that I've been through in life, and especially when I fall, is the dreams that I have and the goals that I have are non-negotiable for me. I write them down and I look at them every single day, like I did today. And the reason, David, is I have learned how powerful our minds are. And we all have a beautiful mind. And what all I need to do is give it instructions. So what I've learned, David, over the years to do is when I don't like where I'm at, instead of dwelling on it and exaggerating, or I don't know what the word is when you project it bigger, like the fear, because I find fear, David, is the number one enemy, and it feeds on more. If I keep having fear, then I'm going to fear that which has come on me will. You know, you've heard that expression, that which I fear has come upon me. I've reduced, if not eliminated, all fear from my life. And I am driven by purpose. Here, this whole broadcast and everything we do. I want others to be inspired. Like you're doing this with me so that you can extract from me how I was at. Well, I want others to do the same thing. I want others to go from here to here to here to here. So that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me bouncing back. You know, you and I in our business, we've had some amazing years, and then we've had some not so amazing years. And
True.
on the not so amazing ones, I feel that's where we grow the most. We grow as a person. We grow as a leader. So here I am, 65, senior citizen now, bro. I got my Medicare card, okay?
I thought we'd get through the whole thing without you bringing up your Medicare card, but I guess
I had to do it because I want you to show me some respect. I represent all these seniors now, okay? You got to show us some love. So, but you know, David, how many times we meet and we have people the age of, well, you know, it was great for the younger people. No, it's great for you now. You know, the Colonel didn't start until 65, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So what keeps me getting up, David? Round and round and round. My dreams, my goals, they're written down. And they are non-negotiable for me.
I wish that everybody watching is with us in this present moment and that everybody enjoyed listening to you as much as I did. It was hard for me to keep asking the questions because I was really trying to listen to what you were saying. And you've been a major influence on so many people. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for tuning into this episode of World Class Mindset. Coach Giggs, The only thing you do better than hosting this thing is being a great guest on it. So thank you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Make it an amazing day.
Thank you, David.